released by the Department of Justice to prove that no one entered Epstein's cell before he was found dead, and that he really did take his own life. But it's only fueling more conspiracy theories. Look, the video jumps just before 11:59 to midnight. There's 1 full minute missing. Attorney General Pam Bondi tried to explain the missing minute.
Every night the video is reset.
So we already heard this, right? But basically, this was a big mystery. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was saying, what the hell is going on with this footage? Like, it's crazy. Okay, it's crazy. Saying an innocent man would want to show the list through this. Anyway, right. So, now we get to basically a witness account from a prisoner of the events that went down of the evening that Epstein actually did check out. Okay, just like I just played you the one, I read you out the one from the first attempt that wasn't successful. Okay, now we're going to hear what went down as far as the prisoners that described it in lieu of any useful surveillance footage, and see how this compares. So here's the breakdown of the document. It says on September the 3rd, 2019, Johnny Contreras, an inmate at the MDC, was interviewed in the Southern District of New York. Various agents of sorts from various agencies were there. Okay, he was advised of his rights, and he was told it's a separate crime to lie to a federal agent. You better tell the truth. Please tell the truth. Okay. After being advised of the identity of the investigators and the nature of the interview, he said, "Let me talk. I'm gonna tell you the story." He said he'd been at the MCC in the SHU LT since August the 2nd, 2019. His cell is the first cell on the left, and he is able to see all of the cells on the right side in the L tier. Contreras can also see G and H tier, along with the middle portion of the multiple.
This is what I was looking for.
Contreras usually goes to sleep around 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. If he gets to sleep during the day, he will then go to bed around 3 a.m. Contreras stated that he is always up for breakfast, which is around 6:10 a.m. Contreras will sometimes wake up when the count is conducted because he can hear the keys. On the morning that Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell, Contreras said that he saw a guard who he described as a black male on the shorter side height-wise and had close-cut hair knock on Epstein's cell door. The guard looked into the cell and then entered the cell. When the guard opened the door, Contreras could only see Epstein's legs from the knee down, but could tell he was laying down on his back and his feet were pointed upwards. Contreras could only see this portion of Epstein because Epstein always slept on the floor to the right side of his cell. The guard bent down to shake Epstein and was saying, "Epstein, Epstein." The guard then tried to pick Epstein up from behind with his arms wrapped around him. The guard and Epstein fell back to the floor with Epstein falling to the side of the guard. Contreras stated that once the two fell, he could then see Epstein. The guard then started giving Epstein chest compressions and mouth to mouth. At this point, the guard said, "Fuck," and asked the female guard who was standing near the LTA gate. She had pressed the button. The female guard said, "Yeah, a long time ago." Fucking deep, right? The lieutenant then came in, who is also a male nurse, who tried to revive Epstein. However, Epstein was not responsive because, according to Contreras, he was already dead. Contreras said that Epstein looked dead when he fell with the guard after the guard tried to pick him up. Contreras said that the personnel were having trouble getting Epstein onto the stretcher because Epstein was basically dead weight. In fact, when they did get him onto the stretcher, Epstein still had on headphones. Contreras stated that Epstein was not having marks around his neck, and he didn't see a rope around Epstein's neck. At this point, Contreras woke up his cellmate and then took a look at what was happening. Contreras' cellmate also made a comment that Epstein didn't himself because he didn't have the typical injuries. Contreras at some point saw a male coming out of Epstein's cell with a sheet that had a loop and a knot. After this, MCC personnel, to include Lieutenant Blank, started to cover up the windows to the cell on LT. They also brought dividers to block views from his cells and the camera. The day before Epstein died, Epstein and his cellmates left at the same time that morning, and Epstein was with his lawyers all day, as usual. However, when he was brought back up to the SHU that night, the guards took him up to J tier before they brought him back to his cell. That night, the count was done a little before 12 a.m., but none were conducted. After 12 a.m., Contreras didn't hear anyone say that count wasn't going to be done that night. Contreras didn't see anyone or hear anyone go to Epstein's cell the night before. So, in spite of the fact that we're being told we didn't have the good camera that we really wanted to have, that would have shown a lot more of the cell, we just got this all-way camera and there's a missing minute from it, and that's normal, and then whoops, okay, we found that minute, and there's nothing to see here. Basically,
Oh, you're
taxes 100% free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with TurboTax Do-It-Yourself by February 28th. No matter your tax situation, make the switch to TurboTax Do-It-Yourself and file free by February 28th.
It's just, it created more questions, okay, than gave answers. And now, the YouTuber Dr. G did a deep dive into the whole surveillance logs, and he basically discovered that what should have been the case is that multiple cameras were indeed functioning and positioned at better angles than the footage that was ultimately shared. So listen to this.
Footage that was released months ago, the footage that was released from the night of Jeffrey Epstein's death, is all from this camera right here. The other footage that was released is from this camera over here. According to what's been reported, those are the only cameras on DVR1. So you may be asking, well, what is it that I just showed you? Well, that actually is from this camera right here. Now we're going to hop back to that footage. I'm going to show you a little bit more that's interesting about this footage. According to the diagram we just looked at, there are two functioning cameras. One's over here, one's in a hallway that we're going to look at in a second, but this is not one of them. This was specifically marked as one of the cameras that was not working. Now for anybody that's getting confused about all of this DVR stuff, basically, when you have security cameras, they have to record somewhere. They're recorded to hard drives housed in big DVR systems. So you're going to have DVR1, a whole bunch of hard drives that are apparently all fully functioning, and then you're going to have DVR2, another batch of hard drives that have different cameras attached to them, but those were not functioning. They were not recording. Now, according to the Inspector General's office, this footage right here was on DVR2, the one that was not recording, the one that was corrupt, the one that for a million reasons was not accessible. DVR1 was fully functioning. Now, what I think was that this actually was footage from DVR1, and I'll explain why that's significant. First of all, the reason that this footage at all is significant is the angle we're getting. If somebody went up to Jeffrey Epstein's tier the night that he was murdered, we would see it clear as day from this angle. There would be no disputing it. There would be no question about it. You would 100% be able to see if somebody went through that door over there, for example, and walked up to Jeffrey Epstein's tier. Now, no other angle will show you clearly what happened. This angle absolutely would. And that's why this footage is so significant, because this would clear up any question about whether or not anybody actually went up to where Jeffrey Epstein was housed the night of his death. Later on, we're going to look at any...
So, shout out to Dr. G, man. His work on this has been great. I hope you really enjoy reacting to this stuff. So he would basically, later on in this video, he would basically reveal, this is the most watched part of this video naturally, okay? He would basically reveal, analyzing every single angle that was available, okay? Every single angle, every situation, every setup, in his opinion, mysteriously skipped at the exact moment that anything significant could have occurred during the sequence. Listen.
After. So as you can see, right now it's at around 2,300 hours. So this would be around 11 p.m. at night. And then all of a sudden, once we get to August 10th, it's going to skip to 1 a.m. Now, since that footage skipped, I figured, let's skip ahead. Let's see what happens around the time that Jeffrey Epstein's body was found. But when we reach 2 a.m., it in fact skips to 9 a.m. So that chunk of time is missing as well.
The whole time it went down missing. Whoops. Whoopsie daisy. It just fucked up. Just right then. Just that whole... it all goes out.
So any time that anything significant happened around Jeffrey Epstein, all of the footage from all of the other angles is entirely missing. Now, if you remember, on July 23rd, Jeffrey Epstein had been found with an injury. That was, as I said, around 1 a.m. on July 23rd. So I decided to look and see what footage they released for the month of July, and it turned out they released footage that went back to early July, the whole month, except the footage around the time that Jeffrey Epstein's injury was reported.
Oh. So last time this happened, it also wasn't recorded.
No footage around that exists. It skips that huge chunk of time. So anything in and around things that were reported to have happened to Jeffrey Epstein are not included in any of this footage. The footage is essentially useless in that sense. But the one thing, as I said, that we discovered was in fact that we have footage from a different angle. Now, another thing I want you to think about is that July 29th is when apparently everything stopped working, when reportedly all of the cameras weren't working. Now, July 23rd, when he was first found with an injury, apparently all of the cameras should have been working then. So why they only released this footage and not footage from the tier, not footage that shows what was going on? Apparently everything was working just fine on July 23rd, and none of that footage is to be found anywhere. So
it was all working great until Epstein checked out, except that last time when he didn't check out. Bro, come on now. Come on. Like, come on. Stop playing. Okay, stop playing. Look, that's everything that I've got on this topic. It is insane. It is crazy. Crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious. You know, at a certain point, you just got to be like, look, it is what it is. Like, bro, like, whoever was in charge of making sure that no one saw what went down, okay? If so, bro, honestly, they did a hell of a job. Like, they killed it. They actually smashed it, because all the bits that we want, even that minute, it's like that minute that was missing is such a red herring. It's like, oh, we found the minute. It's not really good enough. The kind of angle you want, completely gone. Last time he tried to do this, allegedly to himself, look, it's crazy, okay? Let me know what you guys think down below. I've got a couple other Epstein topics that I want to cover. I did the little baby video before this, so go and check that out if you already haven't. I appreciate you guys tapping in, watching and supporting what I am doing. Thank you so much. And just bear with me. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. This one was one of the most crazy mind-bending ones that I could possibly imagine. And also, if you are interested, there is a big rumor going around that Jeffrey Epstein ordered a bunch of barrels of like acid to the island. And I did a video about it, and yeah, it was against YouTube's guidelines. So I put it on my members only section. Go and check that out if you want to see that. If you don't, that's totally cool. I'm going to hit you with another video for free in a minute. So I just want to say thank you for your support, and yeah, I don't want to do anything to piss off YouTube more, because I've definitely been in their bad books, especially on my main channel, for the last couple of weeks. But anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I appreciate you.
Extra cash, grab your used phone, and head to one of 7,000 Eco ATM locations.
At this point, you're probably not avoiding therapy because of stigma. You're probably avoiding therapy because you've become very good at coping. So good that you stop noticing how heavy everything feels. As a therapist who goes to therapy herself, it's important to remember that your mind and body hold on to every stressor you don't have time to process. That stress shows up as exhaustion, irritability, shutdown, or feeling overloaded in a way you just can't explain. Therapy can help you start releasing it. Now, one barrier for many people is knowing how to choose the right therapist. BetterHelp removes that barrier. You answer a short questionnaire about your goals, preferences, and needs. BetterHelp reviews your responses and matches you with a therapist that fits what you're looking for. You can meet over video, phone, or live chat. The format fits your life. Many clients report meaningful symptom improvement within 12 weeks of consistent sessions. If you want to walk into 2026 with less mental weight and more clarity, therapy with BetterHelp can be your starting point.
Hey, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. It is Monday, February 2nd. I hope you're having a good one. There's a lot we've got to dive into today. But first, an announcement. The first beautiful Baxter Drop of 2026 just went live. And I listened to you. A lot of you said that you want a piece that felt kind of more rooted in everything that we're experiencing right now. That's exactly what we did. You get 9 new pieces across T's, Muslim Cruise, Police State of America, Honesty Before Loyalty, because that's really what we need more of. They root and resist. America in distress. Truth is a lonely road. Better are we than a trained roads, and more and more and more, including if you just want to say I'm about to fucking lose my sanity. All now available for you at beautifulbags.com. Top links in the description and comments. But that said, we have so much we've got to break down today, starting with this. Trump's DOJ is exposing victims, protecting the perpetrators, possibly including Donald Trump himself, and still failing to meet its legal obligation to release all of the Epstein files. That's what you have so many people saying right now after the department has released another 3.5 million pages of documents along with 2,000 videos and 180,000 images more than 1 month after the December 19th deadline set by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. While Trump officials claim that they have now fully complied with the law, survivors, lawmakers, and watchdog groups say that they're withholding roughly half of the records being held by the government.
Right now, it's not even the only way the law may have been broken. The Epstein Files Transparency Act tasked the government with releasing the files, but also with protecting the victim, which was also one of the DOJ's original excuses for refusing to release the files, even as survivors called for their release. When the department published this new batch of files on Friday, they claimed that more than 500 attorneys and reviewers contributed to this effort. But those files, when they were released, they contained the full names of dozens of victims, as well as nearly 40 unredacted nude images of young women and possibly teenagers. Those photos appear to be part of a personal photo collection, some seeming to have been taken on Epstein's private island, and the bodies and faces of people in them, they were fully visible. And then as far as the names, according to a Wall Street Journal analysis, several women's full names appeared more than 100 times in the files, including more than 24 who were minors when they were abused. You also have some files hiding someone's name, but then a duplicate file somewhere else making the name public. And some, they had personally identifying details such as bank information and home addresses posted without redactions as well. Right? And overall, you had lawyers representing more than 200 victims saying that they reported thousands of redaction failures on behalf of nearly 100 individual survivors whose lives have been turned upside down by the DOJ's latest release. And they actually had to ask federal judges to order the immediate takedown of the Justice Department's entire Epstein Files website, writing a letter saying the DOJ committed what may be the single most egregious violation of victim privacy in one day in United States history, and saying it is no longer ethical, moral, or responsible to attempt to remedy these violations through DOJ's tortuously tedious games, saying this was never a complex undertaking. DOJ has possessed the names of victims that it promised to redact for months. There is no conceivable degree of institutional incompetence sufficient to explain the scale, consistency, and persistence of the failures that occurred. Now, with all that, it does seem that many, if not most of these mistakes have been corrected. Of course, that's not all that reassuring that those whose privacy has already been so flagrantly violated, especially when the department did in fact take a lot of time to heavily redact many of the files. I mean, there's even one image where a redaction box appears over the face of Donald Trump, even though it just seems to be a shot of him giving a public speech, which then, of course, makes a lot of people wonder who the Trump DOJ is really trying to protect here. There, you had Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, otherwise known as Trump's former personal defense lawyer, saying,
"We did not protect President Trump. We didn't protect or not protect anybody." I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents.
Blanche also appeared both confused and angry when a reporter asked if the public might learn the identities of men who abused young women with the help of Epstein.
Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? Like, what does that mean? If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women.
Right there, you have many saying that that's an insane thing for him to say. Because as much as we don't know exactly who and to what extent others were involved in Epstein's abuse, there is ample reason to believe that there are others who need to face consequences, either for being directly involved in abuse or having knowledge of it and doing nothing. You know, one of the biggest questions for many is whether President Donald J. Trump is one of them, especially as you have the New York Times identifying more than 5,300 files containing over 38,000 references to Trump, Melania, Mar-a-Lago Club, and other related words and phrases. A big jump from the previously released Epstein files that included only 130 files with Trump-related references. And that said, some of the new files are copies of emails and other records of the DOJ or the House Oversight Committee released last year. And then many of the others are just news articles and other publicly available materials that landed in Epstein's inbox. And notably, none of these files included any direct communication between Trump and Epstein. As far as what's new, you did have one file showing that a man who worked for Epstein told investigators that Trump, along with high-profile figures including former Prince Andrew and Robert Kennedy, had visited Epstein's home. Also, another contains handwritten notes from an interview conducted back in 2019, about 1 month after Epstein died in his cell. And they say that a victim whose name's been redacted remembers being driven to Mar-a-Lago to meet Trump, and that Epstein said to Trump at the time, "This is a good one, huh?" Then you have another file showing that Epstein emailed a private investigator in 2001 suggesting that he had plans to call Trump to talk about Virginia Giuffre, or Giuffre being one of Epstein's most well-known victims, with her dying from suicide last year, and she said that she had been lured into Epstein's web when she worked in Mar-a-Lago. There's then also multiple documents, including allegations that Trump raped a child in these new files, but many of these are based on unverified tips received by the FBI. So some outlets are actually not publishing those at all due to downside credibility. But with all that, you have many arguing that no, we do need to show them, we do need to talk about them because they concern the President of the United States. In saying this, this is a man who had a well-documented friendship with Epstein. He's been found civilly liable for sexual abuse, and you can hear him on tape talk about you just grab women by the pussy because you're famous. Right? And that is some of these allegations mirror ones made by Jane Doe in a lawsuit that was filed against Trump back in 2016. And there it was alleged that he and Epstein raped this girl when she was 13 years old, although he denied the claims, and the suit was later dropped. And this includes one complaint made by phone in July 2016
Epstein, which seems to have been made by the same lawyer who represented the change. And then there's another document which now appears to have been taken down, which includes a complaint summary from an FBI tip claiming that her female friend was forced to perform oral sex on President Trump approximately 35 years ago, saying she was approximately 13 to 14 years old when this occurred, and the friend allegedly bit President Trump while performing oral sex. And, quote, the friend was allegedly hit in the face after she laughed about biting him. The friend said she was also abused by Epstein. The file also says that the investigators, quote, spoke with caller who identified redacted as friend, adding, quote, Lee was sent to Washington office to conduct interviews. It isn't clear what, if anything, came from this. Also, another tip summarizing the same now deleted file claiming that Trump held, quote, calendar girl parties at Mar-a-Lago where Epstein would bring in children and Trump would auction them off. They're claiming that guests included Elon Musk, Trump's eldest children, and Alan Dershowitz. The document also references Bill Clinton, alleging that he attended Epstein parties and that he, Trump, and others appear in videos of what they call criminal activity. But unlike some of the others, no contact information was provided for this tip, and there's no evidence, timeline, or other verification attached. That, of course, it hasn't stopped them from going viral online, and it's even attracted the attention of politicians, with, for example, Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego writing, there needs to be a thorough investigation of each and every one of these claims. Now, that said, in Trump's defense, who had the Trump DOJ released a statement saying some of the documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election, adding, to be clear, that claims are unfounded and false, and if they have a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. But with that statement hitting a lot of people kind of odd for a number of reasons, including it sounds like literally Donald Trump's own personal defense in the past. But then also, of course, besides Trump, there are lots of other rich and powerful people who come up with these files, some also in connection to direct allegations of sexual abuse. So, for example, there are documents describing claims against convicted sex offender Harvey Weinstein. One slide deck appearing to be an FBI presentation of Jeffrey Epstein's investigations describing an allegation that Epstein, quote, told an accuser to give Weinstein a massage, during which Weinstein told her to take off her shirt, saying that when she refused, Weinstein threatened to, quote, get women to come force her to. That same slide includes allegations that Epstein told an accuser to give Wall Street billionaire Leon Black a massage while Black was naked, and that Black made another female perform sex. It also mentioned Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, although it didn't accuse him of sexual abuse. Instead, it described how one source reported that Lutnick made his money through Ponzi schemes and money laundering. Or with Lutnick also coming up elsewhere in the file, with emails appearing to show Commerce Secretary Lutnick and his wife accepting an invitation to Epstein's Island in December 2012, and they planned to arrive by yacht with their children. Very notably, that is several years after Lutnick previously said that he had broken contact with Epstein. Emails also appear to show that Elon Musk has lied about his past dealings with Epstein. Right, Musk has famously claimed that Epstein tried to get me to go to his island and I refused. But one file that appears to show that he emailed with Epstein to try and plan a visit to Epstein's Island in late 2013 and early 2014, asking in one email what day/night would be the wildest party on your island. So with that, I'll say it isn't clear if the island visits actually took place. And as far as Musk, he's continued to defend himself, claiming Epstein hounded him relentlessly to go to Pedo Island. So for many of them saying that his denials, they continue to sound like an admission that he knew that something fucked up was actually happening there. But then also, as far as other big names, we've got to mention Microsoft billionaire Bill Gates. Where there's one new email in which Epstein suggests that he helped Gates get drugs to, quote, deal with consequences of sex with Russian girls, and that he helped facilitate illicit trysts with married women. Also, another name worth noting is Hollywood filmmaker Brett Ratner. He hasn't been the busiest since he was accused of sexual assault, though he did just direct the newly released Melania documentary. But in the new files, it includes a series of photos of Epstein's New York townhouse with Ratner sitting with Epstein and a woman who's been redacted, as well as a modeling agent who was associated with Epstein, who also died by apparent suicide in 2022 in prison, waiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Also, others who came up in the files with some apparent ties to Epstein are billionaire Richard Branson, Google co-founder Sergey Brin, New York Giants co-owner Steve Tisch, chairman of the 2028 LA Olympics Steve Wasserman, and former White House counsel under Barack Obama, Catherine Rumler. And actually, on the subject of Democrats, Bill Clinton's name appearing in the new files several times, mostly communications between his staff with Maxwell about travel and dining plans in the early 2000s before Epstein was convicted in 2008. And all of that is, the Clintons, they've denied any wrongdoing, and they've also refused to comply with subpoenas from the House Oversight Committee, meaning that there will be a vote soon to hold them in contempt. Also, you're seeing things like right-wing outlets like Fox News trying to link Zoran Mamdani to Epstein, sharing what's been described as a resurfaced photo linking him to an Epstein-connected publicist. Or with the image showing Mamdani at a luncheon for the movie Get Out, hosted by Eddie Siegel, a Hollywood publicist who's already faced backlash for her relationship with Epstein. But anyway, in the photo is also Mamdani's mother, filmmaker Mira Nair. And as Fox News and other right-wing outlets have noted, she is in the finals. In a 2009 email, Seagal wrote to Epstein about an after party at the Lane Maxwell townhouse that they are attending for a film that she directed. But that appears to be the extent of any connection so far, though you also had fake AI-generated images going around online claiming to show Mamdani as a child with his mother, Epstein, and others, even as there are those who do actually have very well-established links to Epstein. And so outside of the United States, one of the most well-known associates of Epstein is the UK's former Prince Andrew, whose title was stripped because of all this, and he also appears in this new batch of the files at least several hundred times. And that includes in the form of these kinds of disturbing photos of him kneeling over a woman on the floor and placing his hand on her stomach. The files also show that his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, emailed Epstein for his advice just 2 months after she told London's Evening Standard newspaper that she would have nothing ever to do with Jeffrey Epstein ever again. So actually, with all that, you've now had British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and several other officials calling on Andrew to testify before Congress. And this is, you also have a guy named Lord Peter Mandelson already announcing his resignation from Starmer's party after the new files suggest that he was paid $75,000 by Epstein in the early 2000s. Meanwhile, abroad, you're seeing a top official in Slovakia resigning his position after photos and emails revealed that he had met with Epstein in the years after Epstein was released from jail. Also, the Crown Princess of Norway has now had to publicly apologize for keeping ties with Epstein. And ultimately, the fallout from this and global and the extent of Epstein's connections, it seems to just keep growing. But of course, some of the questions that still remain is which of these connections new or involved, and will they ever face real consequences? So there's a question I'll say that Trump's DOJ no longer appears interested in, or with Blanche continuing to just push back on this idea that there is anything more to be found out.
There's a lot of correspondence, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of photographs, there's a lot of horrible photographs that appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or people around him, but that doesn't allow us necessarily to prosecute somebody.
But with this, you have Democrats slamming the Trump DOJ for still keeping around half of the files locked away. And with that, you have Representative Robert Garcia adamant. This is outrageous and incredibly concerning, saying they are in violation of the law. We are demanding the names of the Epstein co-conspirators and the men and pedophiles who abused women and girls. So other lawmakers have been concerned by Trump's repeated mentions and said, what we've seen is sickening with serious allegations involving the president himself. If this is what they're willing to release, imagine what they're still hiding. Our investigation is just getting started. And then you also had Bro Khanna announcing that he and his Republican colleague Thomas Massey requested to meet with the DOJ to learn more about the heavy redactions and see portions of the files without being blacklisted.
So many more
also
go through
threatening Pam Bondi with impeachment.
But it is not good enough. If we don't get the remaining files, if we do not get the remaining 302 forms, the remaining prosecution memo from 2019, and if the survivors are not happy, then Thomas Massey and I are prepared to move on impeachment or contempt.
Words are words, actions are actions, and we're going to have to wait to see what happens from here. Are there some real consequences? Do we get more? Will the day ever actually come where it feels like those in power actually want to hold people accountable? With all these recent developments, everything that you've seen and heard, what are your thoughts? And then there's more we've got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me thank a sponsor and say, there is a very specific adult panic that happens when you realize the only person responsible for your health care is you. And that's why today's sponsor, ZocDoc, has become one of the most useful apps on my phone. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love. We're talking primary care, dentists, dermatologists, therapists, eye doctors, over 200 specialties all in one place. You can filter by insurance, location, specialty, and whether you want an in-person or video visit. So you're not rolling the dice on your health. You also get access to verified patient reviews, which means you can choose someone who actually feels that it's a good fit, not just whoever answers your phone. And the best part, you see real-time availability and book instantly. No, we'll call you back, no voicemail, black hole. The appointments booked through ZocDoc usually happen within 24 to 72 hours, and you can even grab same-day bookings. I love it. I use it myself. I've booked an appointment faster than I can decide what to eat for lunch. Zero friction. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Just scan that QR code or go to ZocDoc.com/Bill. Find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Bill. ZocDoc.com/Bill. This message is sponsored by ZocDoc.
The protein bar spills in your outfit, you change your outfit. And when Mint offers you half off all of their unlimited plans, you grab it before it's gone. Have we forgotten that unlimited that should mean something at half off. 50% off for unlimited anything in the league. This offer is on a timeline. Take advantage of this offer before it's too late, because it's not going to be up forever. Time is ticking, you know.
I just got a car with my tax refund, and there was actually no drama. Okay, here's how. First off, go to Drive Time. I got approved online in like 30 seconds without a credit history. Drive Time made this whole process so easy. Last time I bought a car, it was traumatic. I even got myself in the back, but I didn't even at Drive Time because Drive Time lets you make a deal on your phone and shop for cars online. I got to set my own down payment and monthly payment. Everyone was super nice, and there was absolutely no drama. I mean, look at this pool. Go to drivetime.com and get a car without the drama.
Jumping back into the news, we need to talk about who murdered Alex Brett. Because you had ProPublica revealing their identities as 43-year-old Border Patrol agent Jesus Ochoa, who goes by Jesse, and 35-year-old Customs and Border Protection officer Raimundo Gutierrez. These photos that apparently show their faces since Friday wildfire, though ProPublica itself only reported their names, so we're still waiting on official confirmation to see the risk. Both men are South Texas, and neither are actually new hires. Gutierrez joined back in 2014, and Ochoa joined in 2018. Gutierrez reportedly working on a special response team which conducts high-risk operations like those of police SWAT units. As for what we know about Ochoa, his ex-wife said that he graduated from the University of Texas Pan American with a degree in criminal justice and had for years dreamed of working for the Border Patrol. With they're adding, by the time that they had split apart in 2021, he had become a gun enthusiast with about 25 rifles, pistols, and shotguns. Now, in response to this, you had Trump's DHS accusing ProPublica of doxing its officers and putting their lives and their families' lives in serious danger. You have the outlet countering that concealing the identities of masked law enforcement agents is highly unusual, if not illegal, and prevents them from being held accountable for their actions. And to critics the agency saying, hey, let's make these people famous. Their names are Jesus Ochoa, Raimundo Gutierrez, and Jonathan Ross, the one who shot Renee Good. And the resistance, they're not letting up. We saw protests in dozens of cities over the weekend, including Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and Portland. You also have federal judges pushing back, ordering the feds to release unlawfully detained immigrants, or at the very least, give them a bond hearing in countless cases. And that actually brings us to a very positive update in the case of Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old boy allegedly used to bait a federal agent to lure his family out of their home. And that's because on Saturday you had a court ordering ICE to release him from the Texas detention facility where he's been holed up with his father for weeks, reportedly getting very, very sick. And you saw the next day, ICE actually declined, releasing both the boy and his father, who were then personally escorted back to Minneapolis by Democratic Representative Joaquin Castro. So also, that's not to say that Liam's family is unclear, right? You have Deputy AG Todd Blanche actually suggesting quite the opposite on ABC.
The immigration law, the body of immigration law, is much different than our typical criminal process because of the administrative nature of what we do every day. And so to the extent that we need to appeal that judge's decision, I promise we will.
But also with the situation, Liam, he's just one kid, right? His school district, while celebrating his release, noted that there are still 4 more of his fellow students stuck at the same detention facility. In fact, there was a Marshall Project saying back in December that at least 3,800 kids under the age of 18, including 20 infants, have been booked since Trump took office. He was the director of the Immigrants' Rights Clinic at Columbia, writing in an op-ed for the New York Times. The children at Billy, with whom I've worked over the past year, range in age from 2 to 16 years old. A 2-year-old boy was breastfeeding in detention. One 6-year-old boy had leukemia. An 8-year-old girl began wetting the bed. A 14-year-old girl engaged in self-harm. And all of these children and their parents were detained despite being eligible for release. ICE has the authority to release these families who are not flight risks on parole and while seeking asylum and other humanitarian protections in the United States. None of these children or their parents had a criminal history anywhere in the world. And that's as numerous reports of detailed facilities' awful conditions. Dirty water, worms and food, inadequate medical care, a lack of meaningful educational services, lights kept on 24 hours a day, guards threatening to separate families. In fact, it's just been reported that 2 people there have active measles cases, with DHS and quarantining anyone suspected of having contact with them and barring all movement within the facility. And with all this, you had Senator Chris Murphy responding. This is the facility I was denied entry to a week ago, even though I'm the top Democrat on the committee that funds DHS, and I gave them plenty of notice. I told you they were hiding something. They were. Meanwhile, you're also seeing a ton of scrutiny in another ICE facility in Baltimore, with immigrant advocates long claiming that detainees have little to no contact with loved ones or their lawyers, little access to food and watering. They were denied access to medication. Now, a video's been circulating that reportedly shows a severely overcrowded holding room with some people on the floor. Then, Maryland Representative April McLean Delaney managing to get inside to see for herself, and this is what she described.
It was not a large room, not much bigger than the room that we are currently in, with probably 50 people, concrete floors, a bench around the perimeter, and a makeshift kind of bathroom in the middle that had minimal privacy. It's really only meant to hold people for 12 hours. And it is being used to hold people for 24, 48, 72 hours or longer.
Meanwhile, according to the New York Times, at least 32 people have died in ICE custody since Trump took office, which is even more than Biden's entire 4-year term. Rather than trying to tamp things down, you have Trump ramping them up. With DHS, they're just looking to use all that big beautiful bill money. Right? So as of December, ICE was reportedly planning to buy industrial warehouses in 23 towns and convert them into detention facilities that would hold some 80,000 people at a time. And since then, they've faced political resistance, public Boycotts with warehouse sales in Oklahoma and Virginia falling apart after the owners backed out of the deal. The warehouses are not. Trump's determined to bring the Minnesota model to other states, right, with several hundred federal immigration agents arriving in Maine last week to arrest Somali immigrants. And that has then led to many hunkering down inside their homes, avoiding work, school, and stores in fear of being snatched up off the street by masked men and buried off in Texas or some other state. Also, according to ICE, they've arrested some 200 people, some of whom are reportedly just asylum seekers with no criminal history. And then, after barely a week, you have Republican Senator Susan Collins announcing that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem had told her that the surge of ICE activity in Maine had ended, but saying that so-called normal operations would continue, so it's unclear how safe immigrants there actually are. And even if ICE has left Maine, it looks like they're just going to be moving to Ohio next. Because according to MS Now, the Trump administration is eyeing Springfield. And yes, that's Springfield.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
For last year, Kristi Noem revoked temporary protected status for over 330,000 Haitians nationwide, setting the expiration date for midnight tomorrow. Springfield is home to an estimated 12,000 to 15,000 Haitians, so they're reacting the same way that Maine Somalis are, with a local pastor telling MTV they're making preparations to stay inside, not to come out of their home. They are afraid for their children. Just yesterday, I had some Haitians in our church give me power of attorney in case they become separated from their children, so we can take care of them. And over the weekend, you had historian Timothy Snyder sound the alarm, writing on his Substack. To all appearances, and according to local sources, the city is 2 or 3 days away from a federal ethnic cleansing, grounded in a hate campaign organized by the vice president and American Nazis. And then you had him describing the playbook here, writing, mental chaos has been created where there was none before, and then that mental chaos becomes the justification for physical chaos. Trump's large deportations, ICE raids that will, in fact, wreck and improving local economy. And then adding, once that physical chaos has been created, it will be blamed on the immigrants who are no longer there. At that point, so to speak, the lie is supposed to become true. You even have Ohio's Republican Governor Mike DeWine coming to the defense of his Haitian president, saying, these people are working and they are hard workers, so I think from a public policy point of view, it is a mistake. It's not in the best interest of Ohio for these individuals who are working and who are workers to lose their status. Having said that, this is not my decision. This is a decision for the federal government, for the President of the United States. They're also not totally helpless against Trump's onslaught, because any day now a district judge is expected to rule on whether provocation of DPS for the Haitians is legal. Plus, you're seeing Democrats in Congress trying, but struggling to rein ICE in using what little leverage they have. But with their fight to limit ICE's sweeping power, now officially causing a partial government shutdown. The shutdown that you saw start Friday at midnight after Democrats refused to vote for a broader funding bill, which included over $64 billion for DHS and less civil reforms for ICE. Because while a group of bipartisan lawmakers had announced they reached a deal, and while 7 Democrats vowed to vote against the bill that funded ICE in the wake of the Renee Good killing, the measure ultimately passed the Republican-controlled House. Then, 2 days later, you had Alex Gray being shot and killed, and that prompted massive outrage in Washington. Senate Democrats, they demanded that Republicans separate the DHS funding from the larger package so that they can negotiate their demands for ICE while funding other key parts of the government. And also, I'll say, for context here, usually the way that spending bills work is that lawmakers will write a bunch of smaller appropriations bills that will fund different departments, and then they'll kind of smush those bills together and they'll pass them in larger packages. And in fact, 6 of the 12 smaller appropriations bills have already been signed into law, ensuring that the shutdown will be partial. On Friday, you had the Senate approving a deal backed by Trump that would pass 5 remaining appropriation bills to fund insurance. But instead of approving a new balance, DHS, the just extended its current funding levels for 2 weeks so that lawmakers can negotiate ICE reform. And while the bill successfully passed in the Senate 71-29, the House lawmakers, they left Washington, so they were unable to vote, and because of that, it triggered the current partial shutdown. They'll also say, even though it's partial, that the fact that it's being held up, it funds enormous chunks of the government. In fact, departments that are impacted here, they make up a majority of discretionary funding and include some of the largest federal agencies. In addition to DHS, the funding that's been put on hold includes over $838 billion in defense spending, as well as money for the Departments of Labor, Education, Health Services, Transportation, and State. But as far as what's going to happen next, you have House Speaker Mike Johnson telling reporters today that the House aimed to pass the Senate bill with lawmakers' return, and Johnson expressing optimism that the lower chamber could be able to end the shutdown on things like Tuesday. But also, that could prove to be an uphill battle because you have many House Dems opposing the short-term extension passed by the Senate, which they just don't think Trump and Republicans will negotiate into a favor, agree to bold enough changes to ICE. Because among other things, if Democrats want to enact provisions that would bar agents from masks, require body cameras, ban random sweeps and searches without warrants, and prevent kids from being taken from their families. But also beyond that, some Democrats just don't want to vote for any bill that includes any money for DHS, even just an extension of current funding levels. So in order to pass this bill, Johnson's going to likely need a near unanimous vote from his razor-thin majority. And that could also be hard because many Republicans, including Johnson himself, have said that they oppose placing new restrictions on ICE or other immigration enforcement concessions. But then also, even if Johnson is able to get enough votes to pass this measure, there's no guarantee that Democrats and Republicans are to be able to come to any kind of agreement on ICE reforms and funding the short extension. Because if this bill does go through, while the other agencies would get the necessary funding, lawmakers would only have until February 13th to reach some kind of deal for the future of DHS. And if they can't reach an agreement, DHS could shut down starting on February 14th. So I'll say put an asterisk on that. Because notably here, while other key parts of the department would be shuttered, like for example FEMA, ICE would still be able to continue operating because of Trump's big legal bill allocating $75 billion to the agency. But then also, let's say there is a world where Democrats and Republicans, they come to an agreement and they go, okay, these are the concessions we're going to do. You would then also have to count Donald Trump to go, yeah, I'm fine with those concessions on what I've essentially been using as my private army. Actually, on the note of Donald Trump himself, we should talk about him accepting what some are calling an obvious bribe from a foreign government just days before his inauguration. Because you're seeing the Wall Street Journal just uncovering a $500 million deal between an Abu Dhabi friends of Trump family's The specific friends that we're talking about is the Sheikh Zayed Al Nahyan, or the spy sheikh. This guy is the brother of the United Arab Emirates president, the government's national security advisor, as well as the leader of the UAE's largest wealth fund. He oversees an empire valued at more than $1 trillion, making him one of the most powerful single investors in the world. For a while now, he's been pushing the U.S. to allow the UAE to access tightly guarded AI chips. And when the Biden administration, he was shot down time and time again. The UAE was only allowed a limited number of chips over concerns that those chips could find their way to China. In fact, the major area of concern was one of
Wait, that's actually kind of sick. Am I crazy for thinking this is like pay-to-win root skin? It looks bigger than the normal walls. Am I nuts? They look massive. Like, this thing looks bigger and bulkier too. It doesn't feel big? Are you crazy? It feels bigger to me. Am I nuts? Because you can't see through it maybe as much? Mantis team up? Oh yeah, hold on. I gotta go grab it.
Then the Wall Street Journal took it a step further and they made this whole thing just stink of tried and true corruption. Because what hadn't been previously reported is that months before the chip deal was made, the days leading up to Trump's second inauguration, spy sheik's emissary signed a $500 million deal with the Trump family crypto venture. So you had a crypto company called World Liberty Financial and a Tanoon-backed investment firm named Ariane Investment One purchasing a 49% stake in it. And the $250 million that Ariane paid up front was reportedly split 3 different ways, and the biggest chunk of it, or $187 million to be specific, it's slated to flow in the Trump family entity. So you can see how this revelation is starting to cause some concern. Also, along with the money, the purchase gave Ariane 2 seats on the World Liberty Board. The reason that's worth mentioning is because those same 2 executives on the World Liberty Board are also on the board of a Tanoon-backed investment firm named MGX. Right? And that firm would later go on to use World Liberty's stablecoin to complete a $2 billion investment in Binance. And that deal, World Liberty, one of the world's largest issuers of stablecoins, reportedly set them up to generate tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue. Now that said, Team Trump, they were very quick to jump in, saying that there is no conflict of interest for anyone involved here. You would have a spokesman for World Liberty saying that Trump has not been involved in World Liberty since taking office, and that this deal doesn't grant anyone any sort of access to government decision-making or influence over policy. The White House saying President Trump only acts in the best interests of the American public, saying there are no conflicts of interest. But those assurances, they haven't stopped experts from raising the alarm. So you're seeing people like Kathleen Clark, a law professor and former ethics lawyer, saying that even just the deal between World Liberty and Ariane, that could violate the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Or with Clark saying that the clause is intended to make sure that no U.S. government official is, quote, in the pocket of a foreign government, and then added, this sure looks like a violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause, and more to the point, it looks like a bribe. But they're then going on to say that this, quote, should be a 5-alarm fire about the federal government being for sale. And that, as you know, former top White House attorney added, my advice as an ethics lawyer would have been clear. You don't do business deals with the families of the leaders of foreign countries. It taints American foreign policy. You then also had prominent Democrats speaking out against this, including Senator Warren, who said that the Trump family and their business partners, quote, sold out American national security in order to benefit the president's crypto company, and added, this is corruption, plain and simple. Congress needs to grow a spine and put a stop to Trump's crypto corruption. But that, of course, seems very unlikely with the current name of Congress and the relationship between Trump and the UAE, it doesn't appear like it's going to be slowing down anytime soon. I mean, we just saw MGX become one of the handful of investors selected to operate TikTok in the United States. Right? We know that members of the Trump administration were back in Abu Dhabi a couple of months ago to discuss Gaza and Trump's plan for his so-called port of peace. But then, next up from that today, it's completely unrelated, but I think it's amazing. We need to talk about how Markiplier's independent horror film could change Hollywood. Because if you don't know, Markiplier, he's a huge YouTuber. He's kind of one of the OGs. And his new movie, Iron Lung, which is based on a video game, just released over the weekend, and it made around $18 million domestically, putting it in second place behind Sam Raimi's and Help. And this is absolutely huge, right? Because he did this himself. There's no studio, no distributor behind the film. He pulled this off alone. And in fact, initially, Iron Lung wasn't even going to get a very wide release, but based on fan demand, it wound up on 4,000 screens. But Markiplier just told fans, hey, call your local theaters, request they play it, it would be great, and that turned into a massive campaign, and eventually a massive release. Mark, they were explaining, they just went to town on it. That's what makes me tear up. They left an opportunity to help me, and that's what I'll never forget. That's why I'll always swear by YouTube and internet content creation as a platform. That I don't care about making a profit on the things that I do for this. I'm able to afford to take these chances that a lot of people aren't able to take. I was perfectly content if it never got past 50 theaters, which for an independent release is not bad. If it went to 100, I thought maybe I could get it to 200. I'd be happy with that. And then obviously it ended up playing and making theaters, and actually for a second there, Iron Lung even seemed like it was going to come in with a top spot because the Friday box office, he led on that day with a $9 million haul. But then, I'll say, it ended up getting weird. His stats became temporarily harder to track as some box office charts just stopped listing his film, with Markiplier even saying on Instagram,
This Saturday, right? I swear I was on this list. But Iron Lung isn't here anymore. There's no numbers for Iron Lung. It took me off the chart. And I thought, hey, maybe that's a fluke. It's something wrong, but here's Sunday. I wake up this morning, which reports the day before his numbers. I'm gone. I'm not even above Hamnet. Why'd you take me off the chart? I don't feel like I deserve to be on the chart.
So that actually turned into a lot of backlash and conversation from people who thought, an independent creator was being snubbed and iced out with the mainstream, but also you had Forbes saying that it was likely that it was maybe some sort of glitch. Because Iron Lung is now back on the charts and on the box office mojo, which is the most used chart, that apparently never left in the first place. And last night, while it seemed like it was a neck-and-neck race for the weekend top spot between the two films, he really tried to push people to keep the momentum up.
Sam Raimi chasing me up my own ass.
About 3 in the app, like 228. All 100% now this is that. Intimate TurboTax. When I started experiencing issues in the bedroom, she played football. That wasn't at all. Other eating meds improved blood flow. But what I really needed was something to help ease my stress levels and boost the arousal in my brain. Ample morphine and oxytocin and bleaching gold do just that. I'll also improve blood flow. Now my wife Nara on connection and getting off the business point. Bleaching gold is the liaison to my wife's connection.
So if you got some free time tonight and you want to see Iron Lung, tonight would be the night to make it count. And Disney won't have the #1 movie for the 10th week in a row.
In the end, somehow,
I pressed the wrong button.
Markiplier said, he kind of knew what's coming.
And those did a lot. I said it was very funny. I knew that Sam Raimi's movie was going to pass me eventually by the end of the weekend.
Still, for tons of reasons, you could argue that Markiplier is still the bigger success story here. I mean, for one, Mark didn't have 20th century studios behind him. Also, two, when you bring in the international sales, he made nearly $22 million on a $3 million budget, which is crazy. So far, it looks like the fans are loving it, right? It has an 89% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and while some have compared that to its 50% critic score, because people, including Mr. Beast himself, noting sympathizing is too small, and why I think popcorn score is a better metric here, trying to see if something is worth watching, in my opinion. Which I'll say, for what it's worth, it isn't unusual for a smaller film to have a more limited pool of critic reviews for tomatoes. Though I will say with this pop of success, we should expect more reviews for Iron Man to start rolling in on the Rotten Tomatoes right now, because this movie is being seen as a success story. You have outlets like Forbes saying this may represent the future of filmmaking, where more creators dabble in the space and drag their fan bases along with them. You also have Mark hoping that it serves a push for indie filmmaking in general, that it shows that there is an audience for it, and even critics adding, hoping that Iron Man is the final nail in the coffin of that whole young people don't want to go to the movies mission. If anything, it proves that next-gen audiences would rather think of YouTube as a pipeline for movie theaters than a potential replacement for them. Now, my friends, you beautiful bastards, swear your Monday Bill the regular show died and the news gonna end. So one, remember, grab what you want while you can over at beautifulbastard.com. We got a fantastic new drop, 9 new designs. And 2, I'll see you right back here tomorrow for another daily dose of the news. Which in the election cycle was his winning issue. 2/3 of Americans say ICE has gone too far, an 11-point increase since last summer. Trump's response to all this, it's been the same as it's always been.
Well, I don't believe the polls, for one thing. The polls are almost dishonest, almost as dishonest as some of the reporters have said.
And with that, I will say, although the polls are definitely not fake, they can be a little misleading if you only look at the broad overall numbers. Because when you narrow it down to just Republicans, their support remains fucking ironclad despite everything that's happened over the past year. 85% of them approve of Trump's performance in general, and roughly 80% approve of how he's handled the economy and foreign policy. And then on things like immigration, almost 3/4 think that ICE is doing a good job, and 77% say that ICE is making Americans safe. But all of that said, a big key thing is that Trump has lost support among younger people, Latinos, and independents, and these are demographics that helped push him over the line in 2024. In fact, with every single question that was asked there, independents aligned with Democrats, often overwhelmingly. But then with all that, to the extent that Donald Trump does believe these numbers are real, he doesn't blame anything that he's actually done. Instead, he insisted over and over in this interview that objectively, his policies are basic and perfect, and people saw that objectively, he'd be calling it 100%. So this problem can't be his policy, it must be his messaging.
I think we do a phenomenal job, but I don't think we're good at public relations.
What does that mean? You said that a couple times now. What do you mean by that?
We don't sell the great job that we're doing. We don't do a good public relations job. That's why I'm doing the interview with you today.
We appreciate
I'm trying to help my people. PR, public relations.
Going back to the murders of Renee Good, now it's Freddie, he thinks that's just bad PR.
2 people. It's bad. I hate it. I hate even talking about it. 2 people out of tens of thousands. Okay? And you get paid for it. Nobody talks about all of the murders that were taken out of our country. Each vote that we knock out, we save 25,000 lives.
And then even on the economy and inflation, Trump says that's just bad PR too.
People from the economy they're not great.
They should be great.
They should be. So why aren't they? If you believe that,
I don't.
Are people's expectations too high, or is it just too expensive to live in America?
I just again don't think we're selling it properly. We've done a great job.
Whatever Trump says right now, it looks like Americans just aren't buying whatever the fuck it is in the South. And with that, you should expect that when they and you make yourselves appear at the ballot box this November, it seems very likely that Trump is going to get those results, the same label that he's given polls.
Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at Philadelphia. Take a look at Atlanta. There are some areas that are unbelievably corrupt. I could give you plenty more too. I say that we cannot have corrupt elections. If they don't want voter ID, that means they want to cheat. We can't allow cheating in elections. Now, if we need to put in federal controls as opposed to state controls, remember this, they're really an agent.
Will you trust the results of the midterms if Republicans lose control of Congress?
I will if the elections are honest.
Like happens, healthcare.gov is here for you. Like it's there for Gary. When he moved and lost health coverage, he found a new plan that works with him. There are many ways to qualify. Visit healthcare.gov where millions have found the coverage they need. Wooded.com. Get the biggest game releases of the year at the best prices. Enjoy incredible savings with up to 35% off new releases. Loaded. Pay less. Game more.
with that, the possibility that Republicans lose control of the Congress seems even more likely, with the Supreme Court now making a ruling that paves the way for California's new congressional map that could give Democrats 9 more House seats. Because yesterday the Supreme Court rejected an emergency appeal that the California Republican Party had filed in an attempt to block the map from taking effect. A map that California voters overwhelmingly approved that countered Trump's undemocratic efforts to make red states and districts for Republicans seats. It was a map that almost immediately California Republicans filed a lawsuit against, arguing that the map was unconstitutional because the state had engaged in illegal racial gerrymandering to redraw lines in favor of Latinos over other voters. Then last month you saw a federal court rejecting the Republican attempt to block the voter-approved map to take effect. Three-judge panel ruling that there wasn't enough evidence to prove Democrats had drawn the map with racial intent, arguing that the ballot measure was explicitly presented to voters as a political gerrymander designed to flip 5 Republican-held seats, claiming that voters were clearly motivated by political partisanship, not race. So then, after taking that out, you had the California GOP asking the Supreme Court to block the lower court's ruling and reinstate the old congressional map, while the merits of the case played out, effectively trying to reverse the political development of voters. Because the fact that the Supreme Court has rejected that appeal is incredibly significant, because California is one of the few blue states that has redrawn its congressional maps and the gerrymandering farms race from kicked off. The Virginia state legislature, they also passed a very similar bill that would let residents vote on a ballot initiative to redraw congressional maps, give Democrats a better shot at another 4 seats. So last week what you saw is that a federal judge blocked that map from going to voters, ruling in favor of a Republican challenge, alleging that Democrats failed to follow the collective seats. And actually, while the state of that map is in the case of Virginia Supreme Court, a very different battle is playing out in Maryland, and the other 2 states that we gerrymandering about there. This week, it was the state house moving a new map that could add more representatives. Though Democrats in the Senate, they widely opposed the measure, arguing that it could backfire and actually end up costing them others. And of course, with this, it's important to remember the Republicans are still busy. 4 red states have already redrawn their maps to give Republicans an edge, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis just announced that he was kicking off a similar effort to meet Trump's demands. And then actually, while we're talking about Trump again, we should talk about the part that he's playing in the search for Nancy Guthrie, a different piece of news, right? The missing mom of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie. Because Savannah's 84-year-old mom went missing from her home near Tucson, Arizona 5 days ago, and the local authorities say that she was taken by force. She was last seen Saturday night around 9:30 p.m. After she didn't show up at church the following morning, her family called 911. And then when the authorities they found Nancy's personal belongings, like her car, phone, and wallet, still in her house, as well as there being a trail of blood outside, they began to suspect foul play, especially because it's believed to be unlikely that she wandered away on her own. Nancy Guthrie reportedly went sharp mentally, but she had some mobility issues that left her unable to walk more than 50 yards unassisted. So that's why you're seeing the local sheriff reiterating that this is not a dementia-related incident. Though still, you had search and rescue teams worked all day and night following Nancy's disappearance to make sure that this wasn't a case of an elderly person wandering off on their own. Right, and then you have investigators canvassing the neighborhood and asking people in the area to review doorbell cameras and the possible reports that were cited. And all of this leading to the local sheriff's office saying yesterday detectives believe Mrs. Guthrie was taken against her will, possibly during the overnight hours. Then adding that there is currently no evidence that suggests targeting, so the authorities began working to find out key details that could lead to Nancy or kidnapped. So things like what she was wearing, what she was taken, whether she was put in a vehicle, and how many suspects might be involved. Right? And then yesterday, on the 4th day after Nancy's disappearance, Savannah Guthrie shared a video where she sat alongside her sibling, addressing the reports of an unverified ransom note, as well as pleading with her mother's kidnappers to release her or at least prove that she's still alive.
She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart, she lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter.
How the heck did he get boosted up so fast? I was just above him.
We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she's alive and that you have her.
Now, currently, there are reportedly no suspects. There was a brief rumor that Nancy's son-in-law could have been involved, but that was then quickly shot down by the sheriff's department. While you have investigators thinking that she is still alive with her health issues, we don't know how long that will remain the case. In fact, you even saw the sheriff saying time was not on her side. That was already 2 days ago. It was these days of drugs on and on. Nancy's disappearance is getting more and more national attention. Even as Trump was coming in yesterday on Truth Social saying, spoke with Savannah Guthrie and let her know that I'm directing all federal law enforcement to be at the families and local law enforcement police disposal immediately. We are deploying all resources to get her mother home safely. That was also a sentiment echoed by FBI Director Captain Bellew. According to sources from Axios, who was directing, quote, all resources possible to help and prepare to go. So there, it's important to note that Arizona officials are leading the investigation. FBI is going to supporting her. There was Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was reportedly known to Savannah Guthrie for a very long time, saying that she received I'll see that this week was a man on the phone yesterday. So ultimately, at this point, it meant to be kind of a waiting game to see what happens. The investigators are doing their job, and while we wait for answers, obviously, our hearts and our relatives go out to sustain us. Siblings, and we hope that the mom's found and father's safe. And there's more that we've got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me thank sponsors for making up facts. VPNs are crucial when it comes to your cybersecurity, whether you like it or not. Yet another great example, Dylan's platform recently exposed nearly 180,000 personal records, names, emails, phone numbers, even tax items, just sitting in an unsecured database. Great. Most of the people affected, they'll never even know what happened. That's exactly why today's sponsor, NordVPN, is something that I actually use and care about. NordVPN encrypts everything you do online, even when a website, app, or service drops the ball. Your data stays protected. It also comes with threat protection, which blocks sites, get downloads, trackers, and spam links before they load. Nord, they have a strict no log policy, meaning that they don't track, store, or sell your browsing data. Your data stays yours. You know, I rely on NordVPN most on public Wi-Fi, airports, hotels, coffee shops, basically anywhere one bad router could ruin your week. It's fast, it's easy to use, it works on all my devices, and location takes one click. It's also risk-free with no 30 days out here. See, the best deal anywhere is through NordVPN.com/Bill. Get a big discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months free. And remember, it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, so scan that QR code and go to NordVPN.com/Bill and lock things down before the next week. Headline truck. Then diving back into the news, there's 2 really big things we need to talk about, starting with the Washington Post just announcing absolutely massive layoffs. When I say massive, I mean like over a third of the Post's overall staff has been cut. We're talking more than 300 of the roughly 800 journalists in that newsroom. He laid off a reporter who's in the middle of a war zone, who's in Ukraine covering the war with Russia. Because yesterday morning in a newsroom call, you had Executive Editor Murray announcing the layoffs, which he described as a strategic reset that was overdue in light of what he called difficult and disappointing realities. Saying the Washington Post has been losing too much money for too long while also failing to meet the needs of readers. While they didn't provide the public with basic information about the newsroom, subscriptions, or other financial data, you had Murray saying that they would be making a number of enormous cuts overall across the department. And some functions will be just shuttered altogether, including the entire sports desk. So there, some reporters will stay on to write feature stories. Also, similar to the book section will be shut down and the newspaper signature table contest post reports canceled. Just beyond that, the Post International Desk was shrunk down dramatically. While some foreign bureaus will remain open, others are shuttering entirely. So the Cairo bureau chief, for example, announcing on X that all of the Middle East correspondents and editors have been laid off. But also, the steepest cuts were made in the Metro Desk, which covers D.C., Maryland, and Virginia.
Mr. Gates, here's on board. If you think anyone will cut tomorrow for you, you're really just overpaying. He's getting 50% off all of their limited plans, 3, 6, 4 12 months for $15 per month. Hurry up before this deal takes off without you.
It's tax season. The unwanted guest that keeps coming back every single year. And if you're like me, juggling a side hustle, it's like this guest comes with extra bags of chaos and confusion. But not this year. This year, I invited a different guest. Free Tax USA. Federal filing, totally free. And it's actually built for people like us. Freelancers, side hustlers. They guide you through step by step. Even the most tricky things, like freelance income. So yeah, tax season, try showing up uninvited. This time, I'm handling it on my own terms. Goodbye, tax season. Don't call me. I'll call you. Visit freetaxusa.com and file your taxes the easy way.
Very describing the move at restructuring, though you had an anonymous Metro staff who lost their jobs on the yard, only around a dozen of the 40 people reported to death or fired. And very notably, we've seen multiple reports that all staff photographers were cut as well. So with all these changes, it looks like the Post could be trying to set itself up to primarily be a federal paper that focuses on the U.S. government politics rather than a holistic legacy media outlet, where you have multiple former editors going into the article. It looks like the paper trying to be more like specialized publications like Politico and Untold News instead of the New York Times. Also, I think a big thing we have to touch on is while these layoffs and restructuring, they're absolutely huge, it's also not entirely unexpected. For the paper, it's been seriously struggling over the last few years, both culturally and economically. So, we saw things like in 2023, Jeff Bezos, who owns the paper, hired British media executive Bill Lewis, publisher and CEO, to help the Post get more profitable and smaller audience. Lewis's tenure as a slave controversy he's consistently been at odds with some newsroom, which he is increasingly distanced himself from, avoiding major meetings and announcements, even the one yesterday. And, despite a series of experimental changes, big focus on AI, Lewis has failed to come up with a cohesive strategy for the paper's future, and the outlets just continue to struggle. So over the last 2 years, there have been numerous rounds of layoffs, and many staffers have taken buyouts that Lewis push, encouraging employees to take offers if they do not feel aligned with the company's plan. And all that has already got in favor that Bezos' unfathomable amount of money wants to revitalize, with the Washington Post bill saying that his workforce has shrunk by roughly 400 people in the last 3 years. And then, of course, you can't forget the moves that Bezos has made in recent years that really alienated a lot of the audience. Right, last year, for example, he changed the paper's once esteemed opinion section to have a much more conservative tilt. Then, of course, there was his decision to kill the paper's planned endorsement of Kamala Harris in 2024, which is a move that resulted in mass cancellations of subscribers. So that's also why you have a lot of people blaming Bezos himself for the layoffs, arguing that he is literally one of the richest men in the world with an estimated $260 billion, and so he could easily prevent this if he really wanted. You know, Bezos, for his part, he's just remained silent through this. He has actively refused to respond to letters from multiple reporting teams pleading against the fact that he wasn't even on the call announcing layoffs of historic changes. So that's only prompted more outrage and allegations that Bezos has abandoned the Post after driving it into the ground. So you have the Post Guild saying in a statement that if Bezos is no longer willing to invest in the mission that defines this paper for generations to serve the millions of people who depend on Post journalism, the Post deserves a steward that will. It was also echoed by former executive editor Marty Barron, who accused Bezos of exacerbating the newspaper struggles through ill-conceived decisions. Suggesting that Bezos' pro-Trump pivot is what drove away readers and subscribers in the first place, also claiming that the layoffs were as part of Bezos' sickening efforts to curry favor with Trump, and arguing that these firings are just going to backfire and result in even more canceled subscriptions. Personally, I'll say I'm inclined to believe that a lot of the bad that we're seeing right now is Bezos. Yeah, he's getting on his knees, he's breaking out those knee pads. This man, in addition to having companies that have government contracts, which is a huge thing, also just released his propaganda piece, Melania reviewed that paid tens of millions of dollars for it. Many are just calling it bribes. It's in the same week that a third of his newspaper journalists were fired. Bezos didn't luck into his success. He knows what he's doing. You know, I think this is all happening at a time where it's more important than ever to invest in trusted sources and fact-based reporting to combat the constant growing flow of misinformation. And then actually on the note of countering misinformation, another big piece of news we got to talk about. Prediction markets like Kalshi and Polymarket, they're spreading fake and misleading news, potentially impacting betting markets and also raising serious concerns about American democracy. Because if you're not familiar, prediction markets, they allow people to bet on the outcomes of news. So we're talking about everything from election results and sports to when Jesus will come back and exactly how long Caroline Levitt's press conference will last. These markets specifically, Kalshi and Polymarket, they've exploded over the last year or so, gaining widespread mainstream popularity, and they're handling billions of dollars in weekly trading. And a part of that enormous success is because these platforms market as themselves as legitimate responsible financial institutions that is truth driven by hard data. They claim that they cut through the noise of the news, providing more accurate information in the world, your data is what ordinary people think will happen. Specifically, reporters arguing that the food wisdom of the people is a more reliable source for forecasting than traditional media, polling, commentators, and experts, which carry their own biases. They also say that people who bet money are incentivized to filter out emotional bias and look for objective data because they have skin in the game, and so the financial stakes here, they add a level of accountability that those other sources lack. And you also, as many critics think back, argue that there is no reason to think these metrics are a better predictor of the future. Saying one, that platforms represent a very small subset of the public, people who are willing and wealthy enough to place bets. Also, research has shown that these sites are dominated by young men who have higher risk appetites and are prone to gambling. There's places like Better Market display, so the data from these platforms don't offer any kind of ultimate truth because absent inside information, the users on these sites are no more likely to know whether a candidate will win an election or a team will win a game than anyone else. And last, people using these markets are insider trading, which is a very real concern, but that's also a separate deep dive, but they don't have any special knowledge otherwise. So separate from the concern of insider trading, we're talking about people that are making bets off their own information. They presumably got from the same experts, commentators, and outlets that prediction market supporters claim are biased. Then also beyond that, these markets are incredibly susceptible to manipulation. A well-funded person or group, they can easily make a bet so big that it's too beyond the prediction market. Then they turn that around and try to use that shift to prove that the event they bet on is becoming much more likely. The implications there, they're alarming for a number of reasons. They become especially alarming when it comes to elections. Say, for example, a bad actor places a huge bet in an election and artificially inflates the odds of a certain candidate and increased order is more likely to win than their opponent. We all of a sudden take that as a real indication of who's going to win an election, which these markets say should.
I was using your ladder because mine is dead.
Then all of that manipulation against prompt donors that flock to a candidate or pull money from someone and get further advantage in campaigns. Then some voters decided to vote a certain way because all of a sudden they want
I was just trying it out. I was just trying this out. I don't like it, okay? We're gonna go to the store? And... Is that what that alarm was for? Oh.
Your Titan is under attack. Your Titan is under attack.
Defeat.
Oh, the Smite community is such ass.
Mostly claim that the U.S. and Denmark were technically sponsored by the island. Right, these platforms, they also made the fake news problem even worse by giving affiliate badges to influencers who spread false or satirical news. Again, these are just some of the examples. We've also seen Polymarket repeatedly targeting big MAGA ops like Zora Mamdani and Representative Ilhan Omar with actions described as false, misleading, controlled, and claims. And it's also a very big thing because both of these platforms have deep ties to Trump world. Donald Trump Jr. is a paid investor to Calshi as well as an investor in and an unpaid advisor to Polymarket. As I said, there is not any direct evidence right now.
My name is Miranda Beckner, and I'm a PUMA medical student.
Better, but we are.
I couldn't even go before if I wanted to because I have to get ready right now and I have to start getting on the bus too.
If Granny's gonna take you, then it's not gonna take that long.
Welcome back to a
Can you ask her and I'll
We got some unfortunate, like, what the hell is really going on, but it needs to be checked. So let's go ahead and dive into this. If I can talk, dive into this without further ado. All right, first up, what the hell is going on with Riot, namely 2XKO? What is it? Needs to be checked. This is insane, y'all. So we already been talking about 2XKO, and then you got like all these people talking about that. Well, actually, Dev came out not too long ago and said we're changing the game. It's not going to feel or play like the way that we hope. It didn't like fall along the line of our original vision, so we're going to take it back. We're going to obviously keep it out because it's out already, but we're going to start to tweak it a lot. Other people are like, what? You can't like hopefully like a big game or some shit to like work on this game, and now you're technically still not done. But others are looking like this. Channels, you know, obviously you're playing free to play. I can't talk today. They're looking at the downloads on PlayStation. They're like, this game is doing some serious numbers. So at this point, we're thinking, what the hell is going to happen? Is it thriving or are they in trouble? Well, unfortunately, it looks like the last because they just posted this trend. What was this earlier today? Literally today, posted this right here. So if you just click on it over here on Twitter, it's this, and then it says update on 2XKO. Okay, so let's click it real quick. I believe there's an article. See what the hell. Posted February 9th. If we scroll down below.
Oh shit, Damon.
I wanted to take a moment to share an important update of 2XKO. This is a difficult update to share, but we want to be clear about what's changing and why. What's changing and why? After a lot of discussion and reflection, we are reducing the size of the 2XKO team. I want you to know that this decision wasn't made lightly. As we expand from PC to console, we saw consistent trends in how players were engaging with 2XKO. The game has resonated with a passionate audience.
Your support, they gave you support. They gave you support. They blocked most of the good supports, though.
I don't pick this.
They gave you support.
I don't give a fuck what they gave me. I'm gonna play whatever the fuck I want.
What did Granny say?
What time?
10:30.
She might have to drop you off early, cause I don't remember what time she said, but she said she has to take Big Granny to the gym and then meet Auntie Mika at the... She said she can though, so don't even do that. She just said text her.
We'll share more of our plans. So, how y'all feeling about that? For example, the smaller team will be able to focus.
I don't know because I wasn't paying attention. She didn't... She said yes, but they can't get an answer. She doesn't know what time, and I didn't know what time.
So it sounds like some tweaks to the game. They're not done there. They say our plans for 2026 competitive series are unchanged. We remain committed to partnering with tournament organizers and local communities. Our focus will continue to be on supporting the events and organizers that already power the FGC. Ultimately, this decision reflects a shift in how we operate. This isn't a judgment of individual riders or a signal that our journey is over. We're reshaping the team to give Quick KO more of a sustainable path forward. So on one end, that challenge me is obviously like, well, we're still messing with the FGC. We're not going to pull back the plan we had for like putting the money in making the prize pot favors, which is really cool. But the prize pot money might dwindle a little bit because if they can't afford to keep the staff, they might have to cut back on budgets altogether. That's what I'm assuming, right? So going deeper, they say about the people we educate. I want to be clear. I'm going to highlight this. I want to be clear about something that matters to me deeply. The people who helped shift USKO for years of creativity, care, and belief into this game. Taking creative risks like this is hard, and the work they did is real and meaningful. We are committed to supporting impacted riders through this transition, including helping them explore opportunities within Riot where possible, and providing a minimum of 6 months of notice pay and severance where it's not. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So they're actually like, yo, we realize we've had a dedicated team, and they poured everything, especially their time, into this game. It's been going on for a minute behind the scenes, but we're helping them. We're committed to helping them find other positions in Riot, or if that's not possible, a minimum. See right here, a minimum.
Well, you're already fighting, dang.
Where it's not. Okay, now especially in this economy, it's hard. It's hard as hell to find a job. I mean, to find a job that you love, like in your field, is damn near impossible nowadays. But to find a job, period, you know, where a lot of us will be happy just with that, even that's hard. 6 months is going a long way. Now, it would be cool if it's longer, but most jobs nowadays, they don't even give you that. Like in my experience, when I was constantly looking for jobs in the past, and I was like more so in the apartment industry, it would take me about 3 months. It would take me about 3 months to find a good transition if I was like really getting it. Nowadays, 6 months, I mean, that's a lot for that. You know, perfect world, it would be longer, but like I said, that's cool because going forward, I know this update will raise questions and concerns. That's understandable. We'll continue communicating about how things are progressing in this journey so far. We've been humbled and dazzled by the energy and passion you brought to the USKO community. That energy matters, and it'll help fuel us into the next chapter as we improve the game. Wrapping it up, saying thank you guys for playing USKO, caring enough to ask hard questions, and for being a part of this community. You got Tom right there responding, and it's been such a damn road. It has been such a damn journey from there all the way to 2026, only to be like, damn, we're not seeing the numbers that we hope. No, that's fine, right? That's fine. So that's to be expected, unfortunately. But, you know, with that also, FGC is reaction. Now, continuing right here, I see Satan saying so soon after 1.0 is wild. It must be soon then? Question mark? Generally very concerning. FGC hasn't spent enough on this so far. It can be the download numbers alone, since those were very high. And you don't get it, man. The game didn't turn $100 million profit in 6 months. So we gotta shut it down. And I'm pretty sure then I'm doing a bit, not gonna lie, that's insane, but they must have never believed in the project for not even given a chance to get late. The game in the works for over a decade, getting shrunk less than a month after release. Are you kidding me? And I guess it'll probably still exist for a while, but I wouldn't count on them to get up and turn to release it on the cadence extending. They're wrapping it up under this trend saying this is the kind of information to keep internal, unless it is a specific warning of I wouldn't spend a bunch of money if I was y'all. I think I saw, yeah, bro. 1.0 release was like 2 weeks ago.
He just dashed on me and killed me.
People call this the savior of the FGC, LOL. Ladies and gentlemen,
Are you kidding me? think I like Janus anyway.
After Riot did something like this, like even Legends of Runeterra had a few years before it got put on ice, and Riot did not hit their sales goal for $1 billion dollars. They're wrapping it up underneath this thread. You actually see it if you can close with a screenshot. But right before that, you see it's Riot Games. They're getting things to make $1 billion all day, every day, for them to keep going, or else they lay people off. Here's the screenshot. They say amazing, and I guess this was one of the employees. Says 10 years on 2SKO, 12 at Riot, and I got laid off with 30 minutes notice. LOL. Gonna take some time. Okay, maybe we need to roll it back. I was just praising them on the message talking about we're going to try to find them a transition with the company that doesn't exist. 6 months. So I was like, okay, that's what's up. But now we got comments talking about 10 years, 12 at Riot, got laid off with 30 minutes notice. For that, I was literally just talking to my wife about it, because we've been through some companies and we've seen a lot of shit in corporate America. And I was like, hey, this is shit. Literally playing your business or your career allegiance to a company. And at the end of the day, they don't get shit. They honestly, I've seen it time after time when they lay off people or just how you do things and you put in a notice. So many times
I like characters with good basic attack, projectiles, soul. Emote is probably the better. I like her better than Janus, I think.
I don't give you a decade of my career. If you're talking about a 30-minute notice, now I would hope that this tweet was before the employees found out there was a transition option or the 6-month severance. I would hope. You can only go off what we're seeing right now. But overall, if we're going back to the game, what we're seeing right now and what we've been feeling up to this point, oh shit. I know for a long time it's been feeling like we were just doomed. I get that, especially on X and Twitter. But at this point, it seems like the proof is in the damn pudding. Like, then you have so many pros. I was excited for so long. Like pros from every damn game, and they're all alive. With KO. Then you got teams. That's exciting. I know they were really pushing that.
I don't like them. Maybe because I'm playing too close. That's a problem.
Maybe it's going to boost even more. I guess not. But who's to say? Like, what is Riot really looking at as a failure? A lot of these companies talk about they need $1 billion sales for them to even be interested. And that's the point. I'm not too familiar with Riot as far as like their sales and their expectations. And
they erased
one of the
him.
last ones that said we were all saying that this was going to be the of the action. I mean, you did. I'm not saying everybody's saying it, but you did see that shit on the phone. And now we're laying off. What happened? Can they turn it around? I'm literally asking you. Can they turn it around? How you feel? Never what that happened. Definitely let me know how you are feeling. Like, what the hell, man? These players unfortunately, okay? I will see you guys tomorrow, man. I hope some new videos on that one. All the links down below. So see you tomorrow for that HD. How you feeling? But either way, somehow, some way, get the better. Love you, man. Wait. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I have to say this because this is hilarious to me. I was watching the Super Bowl yesterday and I saw the halftime. And I promise you, when I saw this man on the screen, I had the same thought. That was literally my thought around my family. I was like, what the hell? And here's what I'm talking about. Somebody probably was saying, okay, nah, I wasn't tripping. That's definitely him. Look at the swerve, bro. Everybody in that arena is from Street Fighter. And the reason why they're saying that is because this man right here, pause. When I saw that picture, this is the tweet I was thinking right here. It says, am I tripping or did I just see Ryan Hart playing the damn violin at the Super Bowl? Yo, underneath you can see comments saying, I thought the same, first thought I had for me for a second too. That was my first thought. I said, damn it, I got Ryan Hart playing the violin. I was really laughing to myself because my family don't get down with the community. They didn't know about no Ryan Hart, but I was like, holy shit. Next to customers like Ryan, Twitter, thinking the same damn thing. Either way, I thought it was hilarious. Otherwise, I mean, it was suitable and beautiful. Right up until the very end. But that's it. I'm talking to what? Y'all be good.
From relieving roughness to soothing sin, there's before, then there's aquaphor.
Last one down by Bill.
Where's Greg?
Going.
We need the credit card we got Greg. I'd always find the Eldridge Gregory. Enough. Strap in. Sharpen his knees. Sharpen his eyes. Again. If you rely on sight, you're already blind. Nice. Do it for the Eldridge Gregory. It's time. Oh, just all drinking here. I'm your dear Greg. Watch out.
Actually, it's been taken care of.
Alright, we got new Core A gaming. Supposed to have Core A uploads, but you might be wondering what's going on. There's no upload on his channel. That's because it's on the 2XKO channel. Somehow, some way, 2XKO has the foresight to hire Core A gaming to produce an official beginner's guide to fighting game. Now the question here is it as good as my 2XKO basic thing you actually need to know go, right? Where I tell people to practice doing ABC tag, ABC tag. Very high level stuff for a beginner player. So we'll see if this video is actually any better than that.
In FGC language, someone who is defeated easily is called free, and it comes from the arcade days where if you beat your opponent, you could keep playing for free while the loser has to pay more coins to try again.
But hold on. Is that true? What is the term, the word we use for when you reassign meaning to a phrase or make up an origin or meaning behind a word or acronym after the fact to make it fit in its current usage? Kind of like how meta, people start to imply that, oh, meta is an acronym that means most effective tactics available, which is not fucking true. That is not how that works. People assign that after the fact. I wonder if that's true. That makes sense. It's logical. Yeah, I could play for free after I beat this guy, therefore they're free. But actually, I never considered where the word free came from. Free, it just kind of makes sense to me. It's such a ubiquitous word to me for when someone is just free. It just makes sense. I don't even think about it. There's no logical hoops I'm jumping through my brain. But I don't mind, even if this is not true, this is where it originated from, I don't mind it because it helps tie back to FGC culture. But as you can clearly see, this video is not just a beginner's guide to fighting games. It's also a beginner's guide to understanding FGC culture.
Of course, no one wants to be but everyone is the best players.
Because I have to go and get the bus because Fanny just called me and said that she's not going to be able to do it. And so I have to take the bus.
Even the best players on planet fucking Earth have times where other people make them look free. And it doesn't even mean the people that beat them are necessarily that much better than them, or it can sometimes just be that day they can prepare for strategy you weren't ready for, or whatever way you want to go about explaining it. It's not always that black and white. For example, Meta RD is right now the best Street Fighter 6 player on the planet. Andy Walker made him look free. Andy Walker beat him like 5-0. Andy Walker is one of the best players on the planet as well. But does that make Meta free? He was free in that set. And I think something that happens with fighting game competition, like the losses can be so brutal that people get scared to look free. And other people block other people to look free as well. And I think it's very important to just deal with take your lumps and move on. I get made to look free all the fucking time. And if I never look free, I was never going to win. It's part of it. Happens all the time. And I see people try to shame me for losing to whatever. Like, it's part of it. And I think that when people project that, like they try to shame people for looking free in these moments, it's because I would assume it's projection. Because they're scared to look free themselves, even though that's the part of the journey that helps you to improve to be the player that makes other people look 3 more up, right? So I think it's important to understand that it's okay to be beat really fucking bad in fighting games. It happens to even the best players.
I'm going to show you the one thing you need to know that will unlock an entire genre's worth of strategy. It's going to sound crazy.
Nice transition.
That one thing is blocking.
No! You lost all the, you know how many viewers clicked off right now? Listen, you know the old saying, I didn't pay $0 to block. And that was the sound of every fucking player be like, boo, I'm gonna mash, fuck blocking. But it's true. It's true. Just understanding the concept of turn taking is so vital to being able to actually play a fighting game that if you never understand that blocking is so pivotal, you'll never actually grow to play.
Now I have Rizvoke, a once-daily pill and helps clear the rash of eczema fast. Some certificate is released as early as 2 days, and some achieve dramatic skin clearance as early as 2 weeks. Many have clear or almost clear skin.
Serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occur. CV event risk increases in HIV plus the opportunity for death. Other doctors have these events of infection because they foresee smoke, upgrade, and
Love the itch and rash of eczema. See a #study of Rizvoke versus another treatment at Rizvoke.com/data. Talk to your dermatologist if you're not doing well on your current pill or injection to see if Rizvoke is right for you.
Blocking is as fundamental to defense in fighting games as wall guards for shooters. The problem is that blocking does not exist in the way hiding behind a box is in Valorant.
I like the comparison to hiding behind a box in a shooting game. I think that was clever framing from Gerald here to bring in like Valorant or, you know, try to make connections to the other genres of Riot games.
The command is hold back the block. Classic. This has become a sort of secret handshake or even a shibboleth in fighting game circles because it's unique to fighting games and it indicates knowledge of how to play without being button mashing.
Is that the secret handshake I should be using? Should I be going up to random people on the street who like kind of have that fighting game look on them? You know what I'm saying? You know the look. When you're getting close to a fighting game event, when you're getting close to that hotel ballroom, like you know you're at a fighting game tournament. It's very apparent when you get close to a fighting game tournament. So I should be going up to people with some baggy jeans on and a graphic t-shirt, being like, hey man, pull back the block.
High block defense against high and mid attacks, but loses low attacks. The logic is that your legs are vulnerable while standing.
I like how he uses the highlights here to show what they're aiming for. It's a good visual aid. I think the big problem with fighting games for new players is that there's very little visual aid to explain what's happening. You kind of have to just know how the mechanics work to a degree at the base fundamental level. Even though they've improved different icons for different other states, I do agree it's a little bit intuitive that, you know, they're going low to hit your legs. There's a bit of intuition there.
Now, by itself, this might feel like an overcomplicated version of rock, paper, scissors. So we need to combine.
Hold on, let's see this graphic. This is one of the graphics I've been wishing there was a gold standard for us to have to share. The basis of the RPS of fighting games. So high block blocks high and mid, okay. Low block blocks mid and low, and air block blocks all of them. That's going to show how blocking works. I wish there was a way to incorporate grab and make this sort of an RPS wheel to show how all the interactions work. Because once you understand the blocking versus throw, and the reason why you want to avoid letting the opponent get close to you is because throw beats everything, then I think it clicks like the whole point of the fencing battle of fighting games. At that point, it just makes sense.
There's a tiny window where you cannot block when you are in a jump. People get hit here a lot trying to jump away from the
bad.
Yeah, that can be good. The fact that chicken blocking this game is pretty bad is very tough for someone who played a decent amount of Marvel. And also, the dashing is so easy to get into since you can just mash dash forward or backwards to move around. You will get clipped a lot by these massive moves, being too careless with your dashing. So the movement is kind of addicting into a scale, but you will get clipped.
Now for the fun part. Attack. In League of Legends, there are
Should he have put the attacking first? All that defense, all of this prerequisite to deal with the bullshit other people are throwing at you so that you can finally play the game. I think it's a tough man.
the only way to break out of a combo is when you're breaking your pool and you spend it. It's kind of like a get out of jail free card.
Okay, good explanation.
Without it, you cannot control your champion until the combo is finished. It's like watching an unskippable cutscene when you've enough.
He's highlighting the pain. Yeah. The genre doesn't sound very good, does it? The genre doesn't sound very good. This I think is important though. So many people do not understand once they start getting hit, like what the fuck is going on, and they start mashing. They start mashing the whole time. I do feel like this might be able to send it home for them. That yes, you are actually stuck there until the combo ends, they drop, whatever. You are not in control of this interaction. You just have to look for the next opportunity to take your turn back and try to play again.
It's actually not that different from taking cover behind the wall when you caught off guard. Yes, but in fighting games, you can pull up that wall immediately.
I think it's an important time to cover because blocking being instantaneous is not intuitive for a lot of people getting into 2D fighting games, actually. And for example, like the inverse, when I went to go play Tekken, the fact that there's while standing, there's a state between standing and crouching, that is an instantaneous transition was mind-blowing to me. With picking up Tekken, even Tekken 7, when I was playing that, what the fuck is a while standing state? That was mind-blowing because, you know, in 2D fighting, everything's instantaneous. You can instantly go from crouch to stand. Pre-jump frames, I guess, that's the only comparable state I can think of. Pre-jump frames, when you can go to wall right, sure, if that's the term wall right. And I think a lot of people who are picking up fighting don't understand that block is like always instantaneous. There's no startup to blocking. So if you're trying to hit and it's not a counter hit or a punish counter or a punish, that means you could have blocked it. You just didn't. There's nothing in the game that prevents you from doing that. You just failed to react or failed to comply with that block in that situation.
The advantage in a fighting game comes from being in a ready state while your opponent is still in one of the 4 stuck states, even if it's just by 1 frame or 50 frames.
Signs of withdrawal. Subroutine may cause harm or death if injected in the vein, as opposed to may cause serious life-threatening breathing problems. Ask about naloxone for opioid overdose. Get emergency help right away if you're faint, dizzy, sleepy, confused, have problems breathing, seeing, or talking, or if naloxone is given. Don't take with other opioids, benzos, alcohol, or other drugs, including street drugs. This can cause severe drowsiness, decreased awareness, breathing problems, coma, and death. In emergencies, tell medical staff you're on Sublocade for opioid dependence. This is the full list of risks and side effects. Talk to your doctor and read patient label for more information. If you or a loved one is struggling with opioid addiction, visit Sublocade.com.
If you want to be a scientist, you can see the exact amount of frame advantage or disadvantage in training mode, but tag games like Ghost KOs do not require knowing the exact numbers in most cases.
I don't know how I feel about this. This is all true. This is all stuff that you want to know to understand fighting is at a deeper level and less intuition and more explicit understanding. However, I would argue that beginners mostly just need to mesh. I think there's something to be said to just feel how things operate with trial by fire, and then come back and get a little bit of these pieces of this arcane knowledge, and then pick it up as you go. Because this is drinking from a fire hose right now. This is a lot of information to take in, and none of this will translate to your hands doing what you think you need to do in order to competently play a match. I do feel like the RPS of rock, paper, scissors and all that is super important. And there's so many mechanics, it's hard to get into all of it. Most functional, practical beginner guides, functional, practical ones, you would just say, don't worry about this. I probably would not even tell them about tech roll. I would explain to them blocking, and then I would explain to them grabbing beats blocking, and then when they go, hey, I'm blocking, but I'm getting grabbed, what's going on? I would go, oh yeah, when you tech roll, you can get grabbed, and you can't do anything about it. I would let them be confused about this mechanic for a while until it's time to come back up. So, that's the tough part about this. And like I mentioned before, my beginner's guide, I think my beginner's guide is a little practical guide of like, just practice these things and do these things. I didn't talk about any mechanics. I didn't talk about retreating guard and parry a little bit. I mentioned they exist, but I didn't talk about them to a degree. I just mentioned like, hey, hitting block beat strikes, throws beat blocking. You're trying to move around and force people to block so that you can throw them or mix them up, and people will get hit because they don't want you to move around to drive the throw, so they'll press attacks and move too, and that's when they make themselves vulnerable and you'll hit them. Try to do ABC, tag ABC to increase pressure or to make a combo. Your combos will be ABC launcher, AB special. Practice doing those. Like that to me is like everything you should be thinking about practically. This is more like the college course of Fighting Games 101, how the states all interact to make a functional game. This is more about understanding how the games operate under the hood to appreciate them a bit more. But this is not going to actually translate to you playing the game.
The strategies for neutral are endless, but I will start with the most basic ones. Walk up to your opponent and hit them.
There we go. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Beginner guide. Walk up and hit them. Yes.
It is designed to be what's known as an anti-air. If in pulse mode, Smash likes to do a combo right after.
That was a brushed over detail, but I feel like that is beginner's guide. If opponent jumps at you, press down heavy and then mash pulse. Like that is it. You don't gotta understand why it works or how, but that is it.
In the earlier example, if Echo jumped at Darius with a tag assist, you would beat it down for heavy, and you can combo on it.
Beginner guide.
Yeah, it's that good.
Beginner guide. Jump and press assist button. That's in my beginner guide. My guide to neutral, I said, hey, move around and then jump and press assist. That was my beginner's guide. And then if the assist hits them, do light, medium, heavy, and then press assist again.
Almost any controller can be good, and the best players do not all use any one type.
That's very true.
An analog stick for your directional if you can avoid it.
Okay, last one down by the Ultras. Run!
My cast.
Take back control of your erections. Optimize testosterone through pills. This daily dual-action pill includes prescription-strength tadalafil for longer-lasting erections to help you feel younger, stronger, and more energized. Plus zinc to naturally support your testosterone levels. Pills is 100% online. You can enjoy convenience with discretion. See why 73% of users report having more spontaneous intimacy with daily treatment. Get your edge back with 3D plus testosterone support. Start today at hims.com.
I don't even know if I agree with that. Some people do have problems with not understanding which direction they're pressing with analog sticks, but a lot of strong fighting game players use controllers and they use the analog stick. When I played Street Fighter 4, when I first learned it, I learned on analog stick because I played shooting games. I played Xbox 360. You play every game with the analog stick. I exclusively use the analog stick. However, I coached every summer, and she had the issue where she did not understand what direction she was holding, and so that did come up as well. So that does sometimes happen to beginners where they think they're holding down back, for example, but actually they're only holding down, and then they're getting hit when they thought they should be blocking. That issue can arise. So there are, pros and cons with every controller. I just don't know if I really agree that it even needs to be mentioned.
Duo mode lets you play co-op with a friend, which is fun and eases the pressure. Best of all, winning feels twice as good while losing feels half as bad.
That is very true. I think that's a real effect. I absolutely do think duos are a great way to get your friends into fighting games. Duos are a great way to get your friends into fighting games, for sure. Because it actually does feel more fun. It's less stressful, and it's more goofy, and there's a clear psychological benefit to playing with the team. And I think that is the biggest issue with fighting games. I kind of wish that 2XKO would create a duo-specific queue. I think that would be fun for everyone involved to know that it's always teams playing each other.
That's it. This was Jerome from Corey Gaming. Thanks for watching.
Woo! Great video. Kind of crazy though, there wasn't even a discussion of tagging. The only reference to tagging was in the blocking section. That was the only time they actually showed tagging. I'm a little unsure about this. Beginner's Guide to Fighting Games. I wonder what the goal is. Tagging gets so complex, and I think that's the biggest advantage and disadvantage of 2XKO, is that active tag is such a mind-bending mechanic for beginners, and it also becomes very polarizing. Sometimes people don't like active tagging once they get more confident at fighting games, because it's kind of like an undo button. I would change the wording, me personally, from beginner's guide to starter's guide. I don't think this is a beginner's guide. I like the visual components for showing the different states, even though it starts to get a little overwhelming once he keeps adding more and more states to this chart. But I think this is pretty cool to have. But yeah, after watching this, I don't think you're going to understand to press A, B, C, assist. It's a little bit different. This is more of a long-term foundation for understanding and appreciating what the games have to offer, which I think is great. So someone coming from a different genre could be like, why is this exciting? Why is this unique? Why is this challenging? Why is whatever someone's doing complex or engaging? I think that helps demonstrate that. However, you're not going to be walking out of this playing the game. Beginners have to just press buttons. A great video from Corey Gaming. Always love me a Corey video. Shout out to Riot for clearly sponsoring this to get this done.
Truck is having trouble starting, but he went to AutoZone, where a friendly AutoZoner tests and charges his battery, all for free.
Some wellness influencer told me this is hydrating. I'm just gonna grab my Suja Organic Ginger Love. Refreshing, hydrating, and full of probiotics. It's wellness that actually works.
YouTube, I've been investigating some interesting developments in the Street Fighter 6 Twitter scene. We have a clip from Tommy Toledo here that is going around the community and getting people all riled up. It's a little inflammatory, of course, the way that they phrase it here. Show me one clip from Street Fighter 5 with more robbery than this type of shit. Everybody hates B-Trigger so much. Wow. I mean, it's gonna get the people going. Let's see the clip. Elena misses the ODDP. They have full life. Sagat is in the corner. Conversion to CA. Oh no. Oh no. You had such a lead. You had such a lead, Igor Bogdanov. Where did it all go? Ouch. Ouch. Big comeback. And by the way, just to be clear, the one making the comeback is here, Tommy Toledo himself. He's critiquing the ability to make such a comeback in the game of Street Fighter 6. And here he's talking with James Chen about it, actually, who highlights that he thinks level 3s are often the problem for getting these comebacks because of the fact that, it was the one touch here. Elena went for the anti-air DP in the corner. and they did OD with it, and because it didn't connect properly, they were under 3 bars, the towards heavy kick, and the CA completed the rest of the drive meter, and the rest is history. Tommy says, you're way too easy to force checkmate, even when you're at basically maximum resources and full health like this. Really boring IMO. And of course, you know, whenever you challenge the status of Street Fighter 6, there's going to be people saying, hey, old game not better than new game. People were pointing out, of course, like, Idom literally making crazy comebacks like this with a V-trigger, of course. Idom just posted a Street Fighter 5 video. Here he is. He's getting beat up by Lucia here, and I'm not gonna lie, I forgot this character's name. Who the fuck is this character? Jumping overhead, and you're dead. V-trigger is mechanic. They're trying to draw comparisons to that comeback that just happened. Here, of course, we had to have a bullshit comeback, clip compilation. I want to be complete without Broski and the Aura here. Here he is in the corner. Classic Oro shenanigans going through the chip. That's not enough. Raw V-trigger activate. Look at the damage. Doesn't this one take you back? To be fair, look. To be fair, there's some special RNG that applies here. Nice little shimmy there at the end. That's a KO. Come on. This damage is increased by a few percentage points because he has a Game Boy. In certain situations, you can dish out massive, massive damage and make insane comebacks in Street Fighter 5. But it wasn't just Street Fighter 5 players getting into the mix here. People with Street Fighter 4 getting into this. Tino here says, what's frustrating about this is that it's not crazy sequences like this existing that's bad, it's that they're so incredibly easy to pull off and common in Street Fighter 6. And then, of course, this clip, I feel bad for Greg. This clip has been going around for eternity. Mags will never live this moment down when he went up against Smug in Street Fighter 4 online and ranked. This clip has made the rounds in the FGC for millennia at this point. Ouch. Literally a 2-touch sequence, right? Neutral jump, anti-air, into a full meter cash out, not full meter, but using, pretty much full meter. And then that's a 50-50. You're guessing on the overhead or the low there, and then optimized combo conversion to the full cash out. 2-touch, true 2-touch kill in this scenario. So that is, just evidence that no matter which Street Fighter game you go back to, there will be explosive, massive high damage and comeback potential and crazy sequences that can kill people in 2 hits. However, one thing that really stood out to me was Tommy's comment here that he said, way too easy to force checkmate, even when you're at basically maximum resources. And so, while all the discussion here is around like comeback potential and the ability to do big damage and make big swings in the momentum going, there's a key word here, and that is checkmate. And the implication here is once Tommy got this punish here on the ODDP based on the meter situations with him having CA, Elena not having level 2 available because that is her only visible option, and the CA burning her out, that this is a checkmate, which means this would be a 1-touch kill because a checkmate implies that there's 0 other options available. So from the moment this force heavy kick landed and put Elena in this resource situation, she had 0 counterplay available to survive the situation. And that got me really thinking about, like, what is a checkmate? Is this a true 1-touch scenario? Is that what is actually occurring here? Let's go ahead and get into training mode and take a look at exactly the situation. So, I've already recreated this. So here we have Elena doing the DP here after blocking this, and she's going to go into burnout basically on the punish. So Tommy does this combo here. This is the combo route he goes for in this situation to force the burnout. So we're going to go ahead and save the state here and recreate what's going on. So Tommy goes towards light kick here and then gets the party started. So first off, I do have to call out some issues with the whole sequence with what happened. Tommy, after the super, went for forward light kick to crashing medium punch to begin the momentum. It's not a terrible idea, right? This is plus, crashing medium into the OD Tiger knee. That's going to leave you plus as well. get you close to the corner, we can do a pretty airtight screen to get a guaranteed stun and DI. However, this is not exactly true because while yes, this is a meaty, so if they press the button here, they would just get counter hit, and that could lead to a combo in an even worse situation. Right? It would just end up actually getting them killed faster. On block, this is only +1, which means you can't go into the 7 for impression medium punch. So there's already like an ounce of counterplay. So from that routing that Tommy went for, this was not checkmate. Now with +1, you can do different options, right? Like you can try to go for like a jab string and go into Jinrai. However, every interaction with Jinrai from this point forward, it's not checkmate. It's not a guaranteed situation, and there's the opportunity for the defender to actually engage with whatever's happening here, right? So yes, this would frame trap. But once this lands, I can go from the mix-up of thinking if you're standing, extend my plus frame with the medium kick ender with the Jinrai, or I can just go for the combo ender and I'm +3 and I can pressure you, but there's nothing guaranteed. Or I can try to go for the gusto here, go for the extension on the plus frames, and go for the heavy kick ender, and try to extend my turn, and then set up a situation, right? There's options here, but every one of these options has potential counterplay, and none of them lead to an immediate guaranteed stun. So that's one issue with the way Tommy approached this. But there are other options, right? So maybe, what if I did instead a towards heavy kick? That's pretty good. This leaves you plus as hell and hits meaty. And then I can get the party started with going into the OE Tiger Knee screen. And like I mentioned before, once you get into that sequence, it's really dangerous to challenge, because any one of these combos trades, and once that happens, it's over. Like you're gonna die. So towards heavy kick is definitely a great option to use to get this going. However, that also has another issue. Towards heavy kick with some crouchers. So yes, it does hit meaty even if you hold down back on wake up. If you wake up with a crouching button, like maybe not something as dramatic as sweet, maybe you wake up with a crouching medium kick instead, this will actually shrink your hurt box. Normally your hurt box is standing for 1 frame on wake up no matter what, unless you wake up with a crouching button. So if they read you're going for the towards heavy kick, the landing could wake up with a crouching medium kick and convert that to a combo, and therefore this is not a checkmate meaty. This is not guaranteed. Okay, so that means if you want to get something that's going to be a guaranteed sequence to push them to the corner, we saw that towards light kicks sets up a great situation, but this is not guaranteed, right? Like this is a great situation, but it's not guaranteed to immediately secure a stun and kill. Towards heavy kicks sets up a great situation, but it's not guaranteed to land either, right? There is potential mix-up here that the defender can flip a coin and make something happen. What can you do instead? Well, the best thing Sagat has here is driver stand medium punch. This does hit meaty, and they're not going to be able to wake up with any other options besides block if they want to defend against this. So that's an option that Sagat can use to get in. Let's go down this path here from this routing to see if we can get a guaranteed checkmate play KO from this sequence. So if we start the stand medium punch, this is super plus, and if we can start this sequence, and every hit of this sequence that we go for here, this all frame traps. All the frame traps. So we can rack up chip and then go for the stun and get the guaranteed kill. Except it didn't kill. No guaranteed kill. No checkmate. Hold on. Well, maybe I just didn't optimize it. Let me try this again. Let me try a different combo route. Let's get to the corner, kill the guaranteed sequence.